The next gentleman we have here, I'm very glad that he's here because I've been telling you how we really need to support this gentleman, Ron how do you say it? Natinsky? Yes? Okay. Clay Jenkins is making his own case for electing this guy. So please tell us everything.
A little bit of change of tune here, and I imagine we will end up back with the immigration border issue when we're done, okay? But a little bit of a change here. How many people in the room really know what the county judge does? Okay, that's typical.
Yeah.
It is not a judicial position as you think about it. They don't hold court. Nobody's going to come before me as a county judge, you know, to hear your civil or criminal case or whatever. The county judge is, the title is a little bit of a throwback to the old days when the county judge was the law of the land in the counties that are in Texas. In the urban areas, that morphed into having all the other judges that we have and so forth. Think of the county judge as the CEO/mayor of the entire county. There's 26 cities in Dallas County and 17 school districts. So think of the county judge sort of as the top of the pyramid for all of that. And while I'm talking, if you wouldn't mind, would you pass out those little brochures? All right, and those little bumper stickers. Okay, wait, okay, hold on.
I just remembered to answer your question regarding the judges. Their main duty is to be impartial and not take sides to anything. They don't own the court, and that's it. All they have to do is judge people impartially.
Right, but the county judge doesn't hold court on anybody. The important thing is the county judge does not hold court on anybody, all right?
And we will hold all questions and comments until he's done. Okay.
There's 2.5 million people live in Dallas County. It's a big budget, and I will tell you from the years that I've been involved in political and civic things, people pay attention to their city councils, then they jump over and they pay attention to the state government and the politicians and the elected officials. And then they pay attention, and we've talked about it a lot here, the problems in DC. The reason nobody pays a lot of attention to the county government, especially in Dallas County, is for years and years we had good conservative people in charge that did the right thing. Actually, one of the things that's very interesting is when Lee Jackson was county judge, he set the county on a path to be debt-free by 2021. Okay? Pay off our debt, incur no new debt. If you have to build something, you pay cash. Okay? That's the way that it should be done. Now, we've taken a little turn since the Democrats have gotten in charge down there, and they're trying to whittle away not only at that policy, but a lot of the other things that are going on. A little bit about myself. I'm a business person. I am not a lawyer. I have a son that's a lawyer, but he's still my son. But so I am not a lawyer. And I think when you think about government, whether it's the city government, the county government, state, or whatever, you really should think of them as a business. The county spends over $1 billion of taxpayer money every year, and if you don't look at it from expenses and revenues and employees and other things, if you just look at it as something where the money rains in from heaven and we get to spend it on whatever we want, you're not really in control. So, I mean, from a perspective of who do you want to run the county government? A personal injury lawyer, which we have today, or a business person. And I say a business person can do a better job of it. The county government, as I see it, is totally out of control. In spite of the fact that we're trying to work our way out of debt, they went ahead and offloaded Parkland Hospital, and I could take a whole evening on Parkland Hospital, and they incurred $900 million of more debt. Okay, to go build a hospital that basically, when you look at how Obamacare functions, it will put the hospital out of business. So guess who's going to get saddled with the responsibility of paying those bonds off? All of y'all, okay? So I think we need to change that, and we have an opportunity this year to do it. When my opponent, Clay Jenkins, if any of you don't know the name, when he announced for re-election, he had a two-pronged platform. He was going to continue to fight voter ID, and he was going to promote Obamacare. And I thought, man, God, you sent me a great thing. I can run against this dude, pretty easy. Since then, he's promoting a $15 living wage, okay? He's now into immigration issues, and he's running it like a little junior Obama presidency, is what he's doing. He's doing it without the commissioner's court approval, without even telling anybody. He just goes and does this sort of stuff. I will tell you a little funny anecdote, because when Kurt left, he joked about, you know, who really has the power. Actually, Clay Jenkins got a piece of legislation passed in Austin that allows him, under the guise of being in charge of Homeland Security, to have red lights, a siren, and carry a badge as the county judge. That's how into this he really is. Instead of properly running the government of the county, he's more worried about, can he flip the siren on his car and speed through Island Park. So this is our year to get it back, okay? You know, you hear in the paper all the time about, you know, Dallas County has gone blue, you know, and it's battleground this and so forth. Let me tell you, it has really not gone blue. We've let the media tell us that it's gone blue. And this is the year we're either going to take it back or we're going to throw the towel in and all move somewhere else. We are only losing the elections because we're not showing up at the polls and we are not voting down ballot. Okay? Now, we can use more people to vote, but we really have got enough people going to the polls, and I think enough people are mad enough this year that if we don't take it back, I'm leaving, because I'm going to give it my best. And you know what? If everybody that I've talked to in all the groups don't get off their duff and get down there and vote and get their friends to vote and vote down ballot, you all deserve what you get, okay? Now, let me give you some numbers to reinforce what I'm telling you, because it's not just empty, you know, rhetoric from somebody who's running for office. In 2010, we had enough people at the polls that the Democrats should not be in control. If everybody voted for Kay Bailey Hutchison and John Cornyn, those were the two top offices that year on the ballot statewide. If everybody that had voted, about 210,000 people, had voted all the way down ballot, not one Democrat would have been elected in Dallas County. Okay? Because 30,000 people didn't go down the ballot. They got lazy, they quit voting. They vote for, you know, this one and that one and maybe their house rep. And then, I don't know, this judge guy, I don't even know what a county judge does. Heck, I'm not going to vote for him. 30,000 people didn't get that far down the ballot. So Wade Emmerich, who was running against Clay Jenkins, lost by 10,000 votes. Now, if you've done new math or old math, 30,000 more votes less 10,000 difference means Wade would have won by 20,000 votes. And so would everybody else that was down ballot that year, okay? So I don't really believe that we have turned into a blue county. We've let them have these elections, and it's our turn to take it back. So let me tell you a little bit about what's going on with Clay, kind of segue into the immigration piece here, is that what he's done is sort of ruling like the president's ruling by executive order. He did not consult any of his fellow commissioners on the court. He didn't talk to law enforcement. He didn't talk to medical people. He talked to nobody. He went to the Democrat convention, which was being held in Dallas. And I think this whole thing, any of y'all remember the movie Wag the Dog?
Oh, yeah.
You know, okay. This is nothing more than Wag the immigration problem, or whatever you want to call it. You know, there's enough documentation to know that all this was happening, and basically along comes the Democrat convention, the state convention here, and he gets on the podium and announces he's got this great plan to house 2,000 immigrants here. And he's going to take care of them, and it's not going to cost you a penny, right? Because the federal government is going to pay for it all. BS, okay? Your tax dollars is the federal government at the end of the day. The lady left there when she was talking about the money. If it only cost us as much to take care of those kids as it does a prisoner in the jail, it's going to cost us $6 million a month for 2,000 kids. I don't believe we can do it for that amount of money, because these are kids, they have other issues, they've got to be, you know, whether they go to school or they don't, there's got to be all this other stuff. So my guess is it's probably twice that, which is coincidentally the same $12 million that maybe the governor is going to spend with taking the National Guard to the border to stop it. I personally would much rather spend the money to stop it and be done with it than to continue to spend it on a rotating basis. I will tell you that Clay Jenkins' plan is not to send anybody back. He was quoted the other day on TV where he said, we believe we can find relatives for 85% of them, and then the other 15% will find foster families to take care of them. And as soon as they come out of the system, there'll be 2,000 more, and there'll be 2,000 more, and they'll be on a rotating basis. 85 and 15 is 100, folks. So who's going back to Guatemala, Honduras, or what's the other country down there? I don't know. Somewhere else down there. El Salvador in Central America. If we don't stop it, what's going to happen is it doesn't take long for them to send back an email, send back a tweet, do a Facebook thing. Hey, I got it. Man, they got me housed up here. I'm in air conditioning. I'm watching closed circuit TV, and send on more. So the only people that make money out of that are the coyotes and the smugglers, and we get inundated, with all these kids. Somebody said something about, the compassion for the kids, and maybe the Republicans. We're all these hard-hearted. We don't care about any of that. And I'll tell you a couple things. I did a blast email today, and if any of you all didn't get it, if you give me your email, I'll get it to you. And I got out of 3,400 emails that went out. By the time I left the office, I'd gotten 2 people picking on me. Okay, one called me a blank jerk for my position. I looked him up in the voter database. He's a hard Democrat. I don't know how he got on the mailing list anyway. He had to sign up, but maybe he was trying to, I really don't care about him. The other one was from a guy, and I won't name the organization because it'd probably be unfair, but an organization that you probably know of that does things for kids, boys and girls and, young people. And, he wrote me a nice email, and he said, I respect what you wrote, but I don't agree with it because we have to have compassion. We've got to take care of these kids. You just can't, send them back and so forth and so on. And it was really not a bad email. So, I looked him up. He was a Democrat too. But anyway, the point is that when I hear that we're going to put them up for foster care, we've got thousands of kids that live right here in Dallas County right now that need a good foster home. If all of a sudden the churches and the religious organizations and the philanthropic organizations are all of a sudden, because we have 2,000 immigrants coming here, all of a sudden their light bulb went off. Oh, gee, we got to collect clothes for these kids. We've got to collect money. We've got to do all these things. It's like, what were you doing last month when these kids needed a good foster home? Or what were you doing last month when a family needed some food from the North Texas Food Bank and they didn't have any food to give or whatever? All of a sudden we've got this problem and everybody's becoming good-hearted. And I don't think anybody in this room doesn't have compassion for the situation that those kids are in. But what makes Dallas County the place that they all need to be sent to and that we have to take care of? It's going to hurt us financially. He was rubbing his fingers together with the money. Many of y'all know the infamous or famous, whichever way you want to use it, the John Wiley Price. I'm convinced the only people that are going to get the contracts from either the county or the state, or we won't get anything from the state, but from the federal government, are going to be those organizations that are supporting the position of the liberals in this country. La Raza is not exactly a neutral, middle-of-the-road organization. Gee whiz, they get a $100 million, job to go do something in Dallas County. The other is that none of these facilities are going to be changed very simply. I've been to that school in Grand Prairie, which is part of Dallas County. You don't turn it into a dormitory with a cafeteria and all this stuff overnight. That's a major construction project. And I laugh when I saw Clay Jenkins walking with the deputy mayor pro tem of Grand Prairie door to door. And this guy says, oh, it's going to be great for our city. And I thought, gee, I know Ron Jensen. He's a conservative Republican. He's the mayor. Couldn't you get the mayor on TV? Why did you have to go 2 steps down in the ranking to find somebody? So I looked that guy up on the database. Here's a hard Democrat, okay? And then the door they go to where the lady comes out and says, oh, gee, this would be good to have these kiddos playing in the neighborhood. Don't give me they're going to be behind a high fence with barbed wire. There's going to be trucks coming all day delivering food. There's going to be security. There's going to be all kinds of issues. They are not going to have the same, quality of life in that neighborhood as if a school was across the street. And all this is being staged because once they get here, it's going to be very, very difficult to get it undone. I mean, it's harder to send them back than it is to just prevent it, in the first place. This is nothing but sort of a junior Obama doing this on Dallas County. He's been quoted in the morning news as he would like to have a position with the Obama administration. I wish he would go get a position with the Obama administration, because at least we would know where he is at that point, okay, instead of in our own community here. So, you know, I think we can make a change. We do need to get out there and work hard, and I don't mean it as a threat. I mean, we either take it back now, because in 2 years, it's going to be a presidential year. And as Kirk mentioned, that's a tougher election to deal with. Now, here's a bonus. Not only if you want to get rid of Clay Jenkins, you know, we've got a commissioner's court that is 1 Republican and 4 Democrats. So even if he went to them for a vote, guess what? He's got the votes to do whatever he wants. The bonus is, when I get elected, you have 2 Republicans, and you say, well, gee whiz, there's still 3 Democrats down there, right? Let's come back to John Wiley Price. He is going to get indicted. He is going to be convicted. When he is convicted, he can no longer serve public office. He has to step down. Guess who gets to replace him? Come on, somebody in this group is me. The county judge, under law, replaces a vacancy on the commissioner's court. So not only do you get a Republican conservative county judge, you get the replacement for John Wiley Price at no extra charge. So, you know, I could go on and tell you a lot of other things. I mean, like I said, you know, Parkland is a morass. We've spent, one of the biggest things, I'll close on this because we talked about the kids and all that. About 60% of the county's budget is for health and human services, by law. I mean, the county is the health provider for the county. At Parkland, what we do, though, is we've allowed the adjoining counties, like Collin County as an example, to close their public hospital, and they send their indigent and needy to Dallas. And guess who pays for them?
We do.
You do. They don't even send them a bill to say, oh, by the way, you sent us 3,000 people last month. Send us a little money. You want to close your hospital? That's okay. But at least reimburse us for what it costs. They don't do that. So we're becoming the hospital and the medical center for Collin, for Ellis, for Kaufman, even pieces of Tarrant County. It's easy for people from Arlington to just come on over to Parkland. They don't have to drive all the way, into downtown Fort Worth, and we don't do anything about that. What I would rather do. Pardon?
Would you be able to have some change in there? Can you work on that?
Yes, absolutely. And here's what happens is, you've got all these health and human services, but you probably don't pass a week up where you open the front page of our liberal paper, and there's another investigation at Parkland, at the jail, at the sheriff's department, at the county. Every week there's sort of the investigation du jour, all right? And then I laugh when it says, well, we've got that fixed and it only cost us $72 million. And we've got this fixed and it only cost me $25 million. And we did this and it only cost $110 million. I would rather, if we've got that in our budget to pay money to fix stuff, I'd rather that money be used to take care of foster kids, to do other sorts of things, to serve what we're supposed to be doing, rather than paying it to consultants and studies and redoing stuff. We've spent, at last count, almost $600 million at Parkland on studies and consultants and fixing things, just to keep the hospital legal under the eyes of the feds. Okay? Parkland's budget is only $1.2 billion a year. I mean, we're spending about, that's over a period of years, so it's not really 50% of their budget, but it's a significant portion of their budget just being wasted. And the tax dollars that are being wasted are all of our tax dollars. So I implore you to do a couple things. Take those cards, get on my email list, sign up for a yard sign. If you can afford to send me some money, I hate to tell you this, campaigns cost money, okay? If everybody that's gonna vote Republican would send me $10, I'd have more than enough money to make sure we run a good campaign. That's not a lot. For 25, whatever you feel is appropriate. You cannot, and I just say this in all honesty, you cannot just say, well, I'm not going to help get this done, because it won't happen by itself, okay? Talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, talk to the business associates, your people at your church, whatever. Educate them, get them to go to the polls, tell them to vote down ballot. There's a couple of sayings, better to vote for Republican you don't know, or you're going to get a Democrat you don't want. The other is, if you leave it blank, you're basically giving 2 votes to the other side. Okay? At least if you vote, you're offsetting some of that. This election, if we're lucky, it'll be won by 10, 15, 20,000 votes. okay? There's what, 15, 20 people in this room. If every one of you went out and found 10 people and convinced them to get to the polls and vote the right way, you multiply that times everybody else in the county, we not only can win, we can win by a significant enough margin that we will again in the media be labeled a red county. Now, the end of all this is, if we don't take back Dallas County, I have been over to Tarrant County speaking to them, I've been to Collin County speaking to them. I will tell you, every county around Dallas is worried sick that this Democrat creep is like cancer, that it's going to come across the county line and it's going to take over Tarrant County, Collin County, Ellis, Kaufman, and the others. It won't happen next year, but it won't be a matter of years until it does. Without Texas being red, there are not enough electoral votes to elect a president. So then it doesn't matter who our candidate is, because we can't numerically make it happen. So it is really very, very important that we take back Dallas County. We show Battleground Texas that take your money, go spend it somewhere else. You know, don't spend it down here, because we're going to win, and we're going to win by a big margin. So with that, I'll open up to any questions. I don't know what your time limit are, but you know, it's up to you. Yes, ma'am.
We had a gentleman come in, Kurt Hyde from the John Birch Society, and he said when he's asked for donations for their campaign, the first thing he asked them is, how much are you going to spend on voter fraud?
How much am I going to spend? Well, let's talk about the elections department. If many of y'all were active when Clay Jenkins took office, one of the first things he did, he went down and got Bruce Sherbert fired. Okay. For those of you that knew Bruce, he was as honest a guy as you could find. He was very careful never to lean this way or that way. He followed the rules. He ran a good elections department, and you could trust that if people went to the polls, at least you knew that he was reporting the right numbers. Clay got him fired and replaced with Tony Pippin's Pool. No one has any faith that the elections are being done in a fair manner. When I was on the Dallas City Council, we would watch elections by 9:30, 10 o'clock. All the results were in, all over, okay? North, south, east, and west. Now, if you watch the election returns, some people stayed up as late as 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning in the southern sector only to get the election returns. Well, guess what they're doing? They're down there stuffing the ballot boxes with the votes. They're going to the homes and they've got all their, you look at those ballots, the mail-ins on a lot of them, they all come from the same address and they all look like they're signed by the same person, okay? You can't fix that if you don't control the county government, okay? That's number one. The other is people need to get active. I do know Dallas GOP is still looking for something, you might remember the number, but they need like 80 or 90 precinct chairs in all of Dallas County. And if you're not, if you don't control the precinct, you don't get to be the election judge over that precinct. Guess who gets to be the election judge? A Democrat, okay? And you're second fiddle there. So the majority of these precincts that are out there, we don't even have a Republican watching what's going on. So if you don't start there, you're never going to get down to dealing with the fraud issue. Voter ID, interestingly enough, the number of people that have been voting have been going up as a result of voter ID. The big gap in it, and it's the state legislature that has to fix it, and I truthfully don't know if they'll be able to, are the mail-in ballots. You got two groups of mail-in ballots. You got the over 65 ones that many of y'all in the room, I qualify. I know I don't look it, but I qualify to get one. You know, those are basically good ballots. But you also have the ones that are being harvested at the retirement homes and at the medical facilities, and the ones that I mentioned that all come back that look like they were signed by the same. The John Wiley Prices and the people of that ilk that run in the southern sector are going to continue to harvest those. So I don't know, there really isn't an easy fix to it. So the answer really is to get enough votes on the other side and make sure that we've got enough people voting and voting down ballot, and we can overcome all that. Long-winded answer. There really isn't.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just go.
He got a lot of suggestions. You might want to talk to him. His name is Kurt Hyde.
Yeah. No, I know who it is, but it's not. You know.
He said in New Hampshire they have a paper trail ballot, and it's all they've been working on it, for years, and I don't know that much about it.
The problem is, and again, I'm not trying to be cavalierish about it. It's not an easy fix. We've got more people living in Dallas County alone. In fact, our population is twice that, more than 2.5 times bigger than New Hampshire. So New Hampshire only has to deal like the north half of the city. You know, I mean, it's really, Maine is the same way. There's only like 1 million people living all of Maine. Well, we've got a lot of people here. We've got a big territory. Dallas County is about 900 square miles.
How many voting
Yeah.
areas would there be, how many voting areas are there in Dallas County?
Well, anybody that lives in Dallas County can vote in my election.
Depends. You mean like how many places where you can vote, polling places?
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Oh, there's a lot, yeah. But
2,000, I mean, I just don't have.
oh
any
no,
idea.
there's probably, I mean, I've looked at the list. I can't remember the number. There's hundreds of places to vote. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, John has a question
Yeah.
quick?
When the establishment of the GOP on the national level puts in forces in their choices for president, so for example, Romney and McCain, both of whom ran crappy campaigns, both of whom, neither of whom inspired much support as far as people in the grassroots of the Republican Party actually liking them. Their only virtue was that they weren't Obama. And when the establishment of the GOP does that to people, it has a trickle-down effect where people who are Republican may not only don't go and vote for the GOP's establishment's choice of president, but they also, people like yourself and others in between on the state level, don't get voted for because the establishment of the GOP has an agenda. If you look at how they have run some of the Tampa, in Tampa at the national convention, you literally saw there was a person who put their video camera in just the right spot and looked at the teleprompter when Boehner was reading from it, and it was already established how the vote was going to go. We saw it on the teleprompter, and he simply read the script. So we know from that and other pieces of evidence, the GOP, the establishment of the GOP is forcing their hand, and how they, ignore the Tea Party people on the grassroots. The grassroots doesn't mean anything to the establishment. And when they do that, you get hurt, and the people in the bottom of the food chain of the Republican
Right.
Party get hurt as well. So I don't know what the solution to that is, but that may be part of the reason why Dallas is blue and why the numbers of Republicans in their turnout and how they vote for the people in the bottom is so pathetic.
Right. Well, I mean, Republicans tend to be very analytical, smart. I mean, they just don't go in and say, well, the guys are, so let's just vote for them, The Democrats will go in and they will just vote for anybody. They don't even have to be live candidates. I mean, anyway, they take, in DC, they take, convicted, mayors who've been convicted of drug charges, let them serve their sentence and then re-elect them to come back. We're doing that the same thing here. When I was on the city council, 2 weeks after I was down there, the FBI raided the city council. Not my office, thankfully. They took away 4 black council members down there, okay? And it had nothing to do with their color. They were all corrupt. And, they're serving jail terms. Well, a couple of them are dead, and the rest of them are serving jail terms right now, all right? Those same people that were involved in that are involved in John Wiley Price's thing. I mean, it's like nobody learns from that. They believe that, they can just keep doing this, and, I've heard rumors that, when John Wiley's indicted, that, there are going to be riots in the streets. You know what? So be it. Because if he's doing something illegal, he needs to be brought to justice. And oh yeah, he will. I'll give you a little.
Is there a timeline? Because
No.
first I heard February of last year, and then I heard.
It took 3 years for them to get Don Hill and his wife and all them. Anybody here from Chicago? Okay, the chief thing's going to be the IRS and money laundering and hiding, not paying taxes. He's clearly spending more than he's got coming in, and they'll get him on it. They know it's a sensitive issue. A lady named Kathy Neely rolled over and testified against Don Hill, and he only got 18 years. And guess what? She's already rolled over, and she's going to be a witness in John Wiley Price, because it's the survival of the fittest. She'd rather not be on the other side of the bars and on this side. So I think that's going to happen. We just need to be, ready for it and do it the right way. As to the candidates at the top of the list up there, I mean, I will tell you that as somebody who's sort of been in this world to a degree, you wonder sometimes why some people run for what office, because there's either good candidates or there's not good candidates. I mean, that's it. And those that are good and those that are, have a good personality, connect with people, are usually the ones that do pretty good. A lot of people get caught up in the issues. I'm going to tell you a little story. When I was on the city council, I'm a real conservative person, but we had an issue coming before us. There was sort of a half-ass smoking ban in place, and it was either we're going to loosen it up and people can either Wild West and they smoke wherever they want, or we're going to eliminate smoking in restaurants, okay? So as a small business person, I think, man, I really don't want the government to come in and tell me what to do in my restaurant. I ought to be able to make that choice. On the other hand, you got the restaurant industry and the employees coming to you, and you got medical people saying, this is bad for your health. There's little skulls and crossbones of the cigarettes. You have the Greater Dallas Restaurant Association saying, we want the ban in place because our employees, nobody will work in the smoking section anymore. So, at the end of the day, as a public official, you have to make a policy decision, okay? So I voted with the side to eliminate smoking. And you'd have thought the world was going to come to an end the next day. I mean, every restaurant in Dallas was going to go out of business. Every bar was going to go out of business. Every pool hall was going to go out of business. That's what they stood in front of us and testified, that there would be no more restaurants for people to eat in Dallas, Texas. So rightly or wrongly, I voted with the side. We put the smoking ban, and 2 days later, in my mailbox is a note from one of my neighbors. And he says, I'll leave the profanity out of it, but blah, blah, blah. He said, I've never smoked, I don't smoke, I don't want to smoke, but what you did on that vote is just terrible. It's communistic, it's this, it's that, and all this other stuff, And so I thought, well, I'm not bashful, so I went over to his house. And I said, hey, John, I got your note in the mailbox. I really, if you'd rung the doorbell, maybe you could tell me this face to face, but I said, you've supported me for all these years, you've sent me money. Are you telling me this is the only item out of thousands of things that I voted on that we disagree on? And he says, yeah. He says, other than that, I'm with you 100%. I mean, I love everything you're doing. You're pro economic development. You're doing all these things, and that's really great. But this one you pushed me over the edge. I can't support you anymore. I said, well, I guess my batting average is really pretty good, because we vote on thousands of things down there that affect people, and you try to make the right decision. On this one, you and I have just agreed to disagree. I'm not going to apologize for it or anything, But what you are telling me is that the only candidate that you really could fully support all the time is probably yourself. So I think you ought to go down and run for city council. And you know what? I'll support you. And I just can't wait for the day where you make a vote that we don't agree on anymore. I said, one mistake out of 999 is really a pretty good batting average. And the reason I'm telling you that is because I do run into people that want the candidate to be a mirror image of themselves. And you can't do that and get elected. I mean, I'm just being blunt with you. There's going to be times you disagree with Ted Cruz. There's going to be times you disagree with Boehner. There's a lot of times we disagree with Obama. And I think, you have to be able to look at those things and not throw the baby out with the bathwater in a situation like that. I'm waiting to see who they're going to run, because if they don't run somebody good nationally that can get up on that stage and not fumble over counting to 3, gee whiz, I'm going to eliminate 3 departments. Let me see, education, whatever. And I don't mean that I'm all that great, but I was sitting on the couch when Perry did that. And I could see him stumbling over the last one. And I thought, man, he just needs to say there's probably a dozen more I could get rid of too. It really doesn't matter what it was. So if he'd been a good candidate, that's what he would have said, and he wouldn't have made that mistake. Of course, he's back there now with the new glasses. The Perry V2. So, I don't know who it's going to be. I hope it's somebody that is really good, that can get out there and rally the people and pardon?
They're freaked out by Rand, and they're already putting people in place to take them out in
Well,
Iowa.
Yeah.
Well, I think as someone kind of in the in journalism in a sense,
Yeah.
and going around and doing a lot of different programs, I see an emerging libertarian view, and I think if the Republican Party, and I mean maybe you can kind of take this to heart too, the Republicans are very good about being very staunch about rules, and more rules for this, more rules for that, and we've got laws. I mean, over here you've got the Democrats being Santa Claus with their hand in everybody's back pocket, and over here you got the Republicans kind of having control issues. I would say you really need to appeal to the youth of America growing up who are more libertarian.
Well, the Republican Party, you all probably know this, have 294 things in their plank. The Tea Party has, how many items that you have to agree with or disagree with?
5.
5. Yeah, I mean, I knew the answer, I was just testing you. It's real simple. I mean, you determine which side of the fence you're on real quick. With the Republican Party, and I sat through the convention over there in Fort Worth, I mean, it was painful. I mean, arguing about, are we going to get a new version of the Social Security card, or are we going to get an old version of it? Are we going to do this? Huh?
You stayed awake through the whole thing?
Oh, yeah, it was painful. I mean, that's the only thing that kept me awake was the pain. And when you talk about the youth, I mean, the debate and argument over reparative therapy, okay? I don't know what the right answer is. It sounds like hocus pocus to me, but to get labeled in a position like that for something that not more than 10 people really cared about, and that drags the party down because the young people
Yes.
don't care about that issue.
They want to get rid of it.
Yeah, well, no, that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's a different generation. And if you went back to my grandmother, she'd probably think, a lot differently than I do. And so we're sort of alienating some of the people that we really want to bring in. Somebody earlier talked about the Hispanic vote. I've spent a lot of time in Mexico. They're conservative, they watch their money, they're religious, they're family oriented. You go down all these attributes, I mean, those are our people.
Yes.
Okay? And, the situation we've got us in over immigration really is being fanned by the liberals to make us look like we're the ones that really don't care. But at the end of the day, I've spent 40 years in international business. I travel all over the world. The only place, the hardest place to get into, surprisingly, is Canada. I mean, you think you're going to rob, Fort Knox up there. But most of the other countries are not far behind, whether it's England or France or wherever it is. We're the one, get here, no problem. Tell us where you might be in 2 or 3 years, and we may come, call you up to have a hearing for you. Not in other places. Man, you're pretty much locked down.
Actually, you missed the hardest place to get into. That's for an American.
Where's that?
An American to get back into America.
Oh, well, okay. I don't know. I don't have that problem. I have one of those passes. But anyway, any other questions?
I bet there is. Let's let her ask it.
All right.
Where are you on aerial spray pesticides for supposedly for mosquito control?
For West Nile control.
Yeah.
Okay.
Versus dulcicides versus herbicides.
This is kind of like the smoking thing, but if given my preference, I would prefer that we do not have aerial spraying. If you've ever read the label on that stuff, and you can go Google me, there was an article way back 10, 15 years ago about it, when they first started spraying. Now, I have to admit, I had sort of a selfish interest in it. I have a big fish pond in my backyard. So I went to the internet and I said, man, is this stuff good, bad, or indifferent? I wouldn't let that near my kids, my dog, or anything. It's terrible stuff, okay? Are there other ways to do it? Absolutely, okay? So, but you look at our current county judge, I mean, he and Zach...
The whole court is that.
Yeah, he and Zach Thompson, are out there that, West Nile's going to be it actually isn't the mosquitoes at the end of the day, really. It's really the bluebirds or blue jays or whatever they are that actually carry the disease. It's a lot better to throw those little larvicide things in, or just get people to not have standing water around, and you don't have a problem with it. But you know, we went through a real bad year, and it's kind of like the kids. You know, when they flash on the 10 o'clock news that 3 people have died, you know, all of a sudden, you know, what you read on the internet makes you begin to wonder whether maybe it would be good that they spray. But in the end of it, your chance of hitting one of those mosquitoes is slim to nothing. Somebody back here, yes, sir.
Yeah, I have 2 questions.
I'm gonna get a suntan
When
if I
was
stay
the
up here.
last
I
time-
know, it's so hot, I do know that.
When was the last time you spoke at the city council?
That I spoke at the city council?
Where you called on the FBI, showed up after you spoke?
I didn't understand the question.
I overheard that you spoke at the city council.
No, I was on the city council from 2005 to 2011. Okay, in 2005, after I'd been there a couple of weeks, the FBI raided 4 other offices down there and took away all their papers and ended up putting them in jail.
Okay, how do you bring to the attention of the FBI, the corruption that's ongoing right now with the city council regarding Uber?
Regarding what?
Uber.
Oh, Uber.
Yeah.
Uber, okay.
They disqualified the independent contractor, which reach all level of government, the Treasury, the IRS, the Social Security, and the Medicare, and there go the benefit. It caused a great economical damage to the city of Dallas and the whole state of Texas. We steal the rules and regulation on the book for the past 3 decades, and they have every opportunity to kick their butt out of the city, and they still let them operate. Last smell corruption, 2.5 years, do not require scientific equation to deal with Uber.
If you roll back from 2005, anybody remember Al Lipscomb? Okay. He was caught and indicted and sent to prison over the same thing with Yellow Cab. I mean, it's just like a revolving door. They do it, they indict him, they take him away, they convict him, they put him in jail, and 2 or 3 or 4 years later, the next generation goes back and does the same thing. The Uber thing has more of an impact from an operational perspective, but not necessarily from a financial perspective. I'm giving you my opinion, okay? Nobody took any money, I don't think. They just, basically, the political powers said, we're so in bed with Yellow Cab, we're gonna make it difficult for Uber to be in business in Dallas, Texas. And as a result of that, they found out that Yellow Cab didn't have the required insurance, they weren't following the regulations, they weren't exactly, you know, clean in their own way of doing business. The bigger thing that's going to come back and bite the taxpayers of the city of Dallas, not Dallas County, is this deal over fracking, okay? Whether you're for fracking or you're against fracking. The city had a contract with Trinity East to give them a license to frack on certain pieces of land that were out there. Then the city passed the zoning to eliminate the fracking. All right, that's going to end up costing the city of Dallas and the taxpayers that live in the city of Dallas hundreds of millions of dollars.
Because of the breach of contract?
Absolutely. They can't, you just can't give, I can't give him a license to open a restaurant and then the next day say, oh, but there's no licenses available on Mockingbird Lane where you were going to put one. I mean, so the city took, what was it, $36 million or something like that to balance the budget, you know, and you know, what they should have done is made a settlement. There's some place, I mean, I wouldn't want fracking in my backyard, but you know what? The places they were going to frack were in nobody's backyard. Okay, they were out there on undone land over by the, you know, whatever. But that, you know, if you don't want to do any fracking later, don't issue any more licenses. You had a couple little pieces of land. It's not going to be worth it to the taxpayers, in my opinion. I'm just telling you my 2 cents worth. To pay a couple hundred, $200-300 million in penalties. And they're going to lose the lawsuit. I mean, I guarantee you they're going to lose the
I
lawsuit.
appreciate you taking the question. This is the last thing
All
I
right.
want to tell you. The city council now so corrupt. We are citizens of the city. I understand that the city council have governmental immunity to pass rule, legislation, or whatever, but they do not have an immunity not to enforce the rule. Now what they come up with, the last thing I heard at the committee meeting regarding Uber, that the chair said we need to reinvent the wheel. And what it meant, it will be more of the same. Now they double the amount of permit. We are taxpayers like everybody else. If you want to regulate the taxpayer, but not just the industry that you're going to take more money, double $500 more out of 271 companies. But if you spray through the whole thing and you want to regulate, go ahead, you have my blessing. But don't take money out of my pocket. And I'm going to bring this to the city council. And if I can, I will try to get the FBI attention on this deal. There is no reason for 2.5 years giving them a green card to operate, and it's hurting our business. What they did, what we used to charge $300 going to Texas Stadium, now it's $81.
Because of Uber.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, what they did, they're taking 20% from the top, which is 25%. They discount 30 to 60% to the consumer. That's make it about 85%. And then they tell the customer not to tip, that's another 20%. So what we left with is just paying the expenses, their expenses, and now they raised it 25% to 32%.
All right, let me just say this, and then we'll get off of Uber.
This is a-
Because Uber's not a county thing, but it's a city thing, but it has other effects. You know, sometimes people can become very resistant to change. I don't think Uber would have found the market in Dallas as welcome as they have found it had the existing cab operators upgraded their service. I'm not trying to pick on you. I'm just,
No.
I've been through some of that. If they had taken and launched apps and done things. I was at one meeting, I used to chair the RTC, which is a 12-county transportation authority. And we were having a debate about, we're trying to do right by the taxi companies by saying, how about if we issue you one license, pay one fee, it'll cost you no more than you have to pay now, and you'll be licensed in all 12 counties. So you can go anywhere you want. To us, it sounded like a good deal. Does it sound good to you?
Yeah.
Okay, one regulatory thing, one thing to deal with and whatever. The independent taxi drivers, and I don't know if you're an independent or you drive for who you drive for, it doesn't matter.
Our own company.
Okay, it doesn't matter, the answer is still gonna be the same. One thing you learn from me, I just tell it like it is, you either like me or you don't like me, you smoke or you don't smoke, I don't care. I'm gonna do what I think is the right thing for the biggest, number of people. And so this gentleman, after the meeting, he came out and he said, I want you to come out here because, we don't want you to regulate the condition of the cabs. We think we can self-regulate the condition of the cabs. So I said, okay, fine. So I went outside the building. He took me over to his cab, and he had it was a Chevy Lumina van, one of those with the long slopey nose, minivan, and he proudly opens the door and he slides the door back and he says, look at my van. Guys, gals, there is no way I'd have put this butt in that van. It was disgusting. And I pointed it out to him. I said, maybe we just don't think alike here, but I don't consider this the type of environment when somebody goes to DFW Airport and they're visiting Dallas, Texas, and you're gonna pull up with this and ask you to get in with your luggage and your kids, the seats are stained and brown or whatever. Now maybe that was an anomaly, and I believe that he truly felt that his van was absolutely top-notch. And I told him, I said, that's why we unfortunately have got to put some regulations in place. Somebody needs to look at your van and make a judgment. It's either, it doesn't have to be brand new. It can be 7 years old as long as it's clean. One of the cities I go to all the time is Atlanta. They have no age limit on taxis. It can be as old as you want.
No, they changed the rule.
Well, okay, maybe they changed it. But it's got to be clean and presentable. And I will tell you, I get into some of those big 1980 Oldsmobile station wagons, with the Vista Cruiser thing. I mean, they're like historic, they're classic. But boy, they're clean, and they don't smell bad, whatever. So it doesn't matter how you get there, but you got to end up with something to where if somebody's going to the airport or whatever. And so all I'm saying is, I think what happened is the changing demographics of the younger people. I've got some people my age that use Uber. Surprised the heck out of me. We were at a party one night.
It's cheap, I mean, it's cheaper than a taxi.
Well,
I can carry 4 people going 3 miles
Yeah.
for $15,
Right.
give $4 to Uber.
Yeah.
A cab charge $2.25, extra dollar for each one of them, and this consumer have an attitude, arrogant, that they think that they entitled to the whole world.
Yeah.
We don't want to have anything to do with you.
Yeah, well,
This is our
We
money.
got 2 more questions.
you didn't ask a
for
question
Len.
here.
Yes, I
Okay.
just had one more
Yeah.
statement. I've stated several times in various meetings that I thought that Thomas Jefferson was perhaps a time traveler from our time back to then to leave that message about the banking system
Yeah.
and the effect on the public. I think you're probably about 150 years older than you claim, or you're a time traveler from them. Because you were the first politician I've listened to for a long time who was a constitutionalist. And I appreciate that.
Well, I will tell you something funny before I get your question here. I went to high school here in Dallas. Now, I was born in Detroit, so it's a great place to be from, okay?
Yes.
Got here as quick as I could in 1958. And when I was going to high school, one day, they used to call it, what do they call it, civics. My civics teacher told me, Natinsky, you're not paying attention. One day, government is going to be very important to you. Now, she didn't know that I was paying attention. I just didn't look like I was paying attention. So after I got on the city council, I called her up,
Oh, that's
and I
funny.
said, now I are government. Anyway, funny story. So,
That's funny.
yes, sir.
Cool.
I appreciate the compliment. And I'm
I
not
really mean it.
I'm not 150 years old either.
No, I know that.
But I do get Social Security, okay? So that gives you a clue.
Talking about the power pivot strategy, went back when Kirk
Yeah.
Douglas was here.
Yeah.
This gentleman talked about the
Yeah.
Federal Reserve, which is printing a lot of money.
Right.
And when they overinflate the dollar, it devalues it. Okay, so many people are very concerned, and with good reason, that there's going to be some kind of an economic crash. We have some leaked documents coming from Homeland Security. We have purchase orders for 2.5 billion rounds of hollow point ammunition. We have various military-grade assets being brought from overseas to the United States for law enforcement purposes. So we are now a police state. What, if you were elected for Dallas County Judge, what would you do to guarantee that constitutional rights and human rights were not violated if there was ever any kind of a martial law scenario within Dallas County?
Well, a couple things. First of all, the commissioner, well, you've got your county judge, you've got your 4 commissioners, and you got your sheriff, and all the other departments down here. So while the county judge has no direct authority to go to the sheriff and say, you shall do this or not do that, you do control the purse strings. That's always a very important thing. The other is the county judge by law becomes the person in charge if you declare an emergency situation, and certainly something like martial law would fall. I'm not advocating it, I'm just telling you. In a situation like that, the county judge then becomes in a position to direct, irregardless of whether the sheriff likes it, doesn't like it, or whatever. So a lot of that is bully pulpit. A lot of it is whether you have the support from the other commissioners. A lot of it is how you interact with other governmental agencies. If you have a good relationship with the state agencies, you have a lot better chance of getting done what you want to get done rather than having it crammed down your throat, okay? Texas, I think, we are the only state that has, the right to vote ourselves out of the union and all that, and, we've heard about the secession and so forth. I think we're going to be, a difficult situation for the federal government because our economy by itself is right up there with the economy of Switzerland. I mean, we're not going to go out of business whether we're in the United States or we're out of the United States, and we have a huge impact on the overall economy of the United States. So, do they want to tangle with us? But a lot of that depends whether you've got politicians with backbones. If you have weak politicians who are going to let the federal government roll over everybody and put laws, these sort of executive order laws, they're not really laws, and do all that, I got news for you. If you give them an inch, they're going to take,
That's right.
6 inches, and then they're going to take
right.
a foot.
But I think his question was,
Yeah.
if the dollar's devalued, you know, and that doesn't have anything to do with Texas, that's the Federal Reserve note.
Well, but, you know, we've got, I mean, when you, everybody know who Richard Fisher is?
Uh-huh.
Okay. He does not believe the Federal, you know, reserve system, the way it's functioning, is really doing it in the best interest of the entire nation or the economy.
It doesn't matter what he thinks anyway, I mean.
Well, yeah, but he's been ahead of it, okay?
Yeah, so-
And so, you know,
It's a nice thing to say.
yeah, but I really, I guess I'm somewhat of a conspiratist, but I'm also not, because I think the problem is if people stand up for their rights, the government's going to back off. They can only go so far. I have lots of ammunition in my house, and I have lots of guns, and I buy everything that I can, okay?
But the private Federal Reserve is not the government. It's a private,
You're right, but it's there, and I don't know how to get rid of it. I'll be honest with you.
yeah.
I mean, if you have control of both houses, the Senate and the Congress, and you have a president in place, maybe you've got a chance to go do something. But sometimes what you, and I don't know this, I'm just kind of talking off the top of my head. Sometimes be careful what you wish for, because do you really want the equivalent of somebody's got to do all this stuff, got to move money around. Do you really want Obama moving it around?
Well, that's not the point.
Well, but it is, because
Let me
you're
just kind of capstone it here, we need to
Yeah.
finish up. Is,
running out of tape, huh?
Exactly, and battery.
Okay.
If we have some kind of catastrophic emergency here, and that's actually a definition of classification.
Yeah.
It could be economic, it could be power, it could be any number of things. If you are county judge at that time, I would urge you to tell the feds, we have it handled here.
Yeah.
And then do our best to do that, because that really is the key. If you let them in,
Oh, you know, that's the one thing that Perry did that was smart. A lot of people are saying, you know, you know, when he didn't take that federal money, because all it is just the
It's a
carrot.
string.
Get us addicted to it,
That's right.
and then we'll take that away later. And then, by the way, then you figure out how you fund it, you know, yourself. You know, at that point, you've got to stand up and do what's right. And but you've got to be able to have working relationships with other people to understand it, because you can't stand out there by yourself. They'll just take you out. So
Right.
anyway, I appreciate it.
How long is your term of office?
It is 4 years.
4 years, okay.
And-
What other things? Really a timeline, reasonable timeline for John Wiley Price, because that would be awesome to appoint somebody.
You know, I think he'll probably be indicted this fall. It is not going to be a pleasant trial. It's going to be a year, 2 years. He's going to drag it out as long as he wants.
Uh-huh.
Actually, that's fine, because I don't really want him to indict him and convict him while Clay Jenkins is in office, because he'll just, you know, appoint his own little, you know, clone to that position. So that part of it is okay.
Right.
And I will tell you that you do have an opportunity, you know, you've got Elba Garcia, who is on the Commissioner's Court. She served on the City Council. Her husband may be Domingo, and he may be on another planet, but, you know, I think she understands enough about how, you know, how things go, that you can sit down. You may not win everything with her. Teresa Daniels is coming up for re-election next cycle, not this one. Somebody in that district needs to get out there and plan on running against her. She's not dynamic. She's not a powerful, you know, candidate. We talked earlier about, you know, good candidates. I mean, you know, it'd be tough to run against Elba, but it wouldn't be tough to run against Teresa. So, you know, you could end up with a 5-to-1 Commissioner's Court, and you're in a whole different dynamics when you've got that situation.
Awesome.
One other quick question.
Yeah.
We all come from somewhere. What's the origin of your family name?
My grandparents came here at the turn of the century from, depending who owned, when I say owned, who had control of that part of it. It was either Russia or Poland, depending on who was at war with whom.
Yes,
Right.
So my parents were born here, and so I guess you could consider myself, what am I, second generation U.S.
Right.
And so, I mean, all of us came from, for the most part, from somewhere. You know, I do have a friend of mine. She's like a 7th generation Texan, she claims, Well, I mean, I took 30 years for every generation, and Texas wasn't even here then, but she's very proud of it. So,
5 generation, but.
yeah, that's a little stretchy.
Seven may not.
Anyway, I appreciate y'all's
Thank
support.
you.
It is gonna be a tough election, but we can win it. And I tell you what, the game changes once we get control down there at Dallas County, because a lot of these shenanigans, just simply, go away at that point. Let me give you one other scare tactic. I know you.
Okay, no.
Being from Detroit, I just thought of this. This is good. Don't leave yet. You'll like this one. All right, go ahead. I'll tell you later. They can tell you at the next meeting.
Okay.
Every year they do a study of job growth in the United States, county by county. How many people lose jobs? How many people gain jobs? Okay? In 10 years, the cycle is, it's in a rolling 10 years. Okay? Dallas, Texas has lost 266,000 jobs in 10 years. Dallas County. That doesn't count the 4,000 that went to work in Plano for Toyota or anywhere else. Dallas County has lost 266,000 jobs. Okay?
I'm surprised.
Guess who's lost? We're number 2 at the bottom of the list. We're down here. Guess what city is the actual lost the most jobs? Detroit. I mean, what claimed, and how long have the Democrats been in charge? About 10.
You were almost from Chicago.
Well, almost.
From Detroit, it was in Chicago.
So while the rest of the country, and if you hear other people, you've probably heard these people, if you listen to the House of Representatives, you listen to the governor, whoever, 1,000 people a day are moving to Texas. That's true. We've got a great economy and we're doing great. We're just not doing great in Dallas County. And that's why our taxes continue to climb every year, because we're not spreading that over a bigger and bigger base. So for such a thriving region in the country, the North Texas region moved from number 4 to number 3 largest economic engine in the United States,
In the whole United States.
except for the hole in the donut that's made up of Dallas County. Tarrant County is growing, Collin County's growing, Ellis County's growing, Kaufman's growing, Rockwall's growing. We're not growing. Think about that, 266,000 jobs lost.
But Dallas increased 100,000 in population last year.
The city of Dallas.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is just jobs. It has
Yeah,
nothing.
no, I mean,
Yeah.
that even makes it worse.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's only 2.5 million people in the county, so that's in excess of 10% of
Well-
people.
well, think-
Not
no.
all the people have jobs.
Say half the people don't work. Half are either, homemakers or too old or too young or whatever. So take 1.2 million and take 266,000. I mean, it's 20% of the population of the working population is what we lost in those 10 years. And if we had all those people working, you spread the taxes over all of them, the economy's better, and our taxes end up being lower. The only way you control taxes is by growing the economy and spreading it over a bigger number of people. Then you can lower the taxes. The last thing I'm going to leave you with is, it always irritates me when you hear your public officials, we're so proud that we didn't raise the tax rate on you this year. Okay. The problem is that DCAD, the appraisal district this year, on your house is going up 7%.
Yeah.
So when they announce in September, when you hear the county, I guarantee you, they are going to announce they're so proud that there's no tax increase. But your taxes are going to go up. The money that you write your check for is going to go up 7%. And then they're going to spend 7% more money.
So, the shell game, the shell game.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
bye-bye. We'll see you again.
There are so many good things. I'm so glad he's a businessman. That is so true. I mean, listen to him. I think that's all great. One thing I'll say as activists for truth is a disclaimer. We all both. It's good versus evil, light and dark. So we don't necessarily always look at it just as a political party type affiliation kind of thing. It's like there's good and bad in both, But you, in particular, are running as a Republican, so without a doubt. And also our lack of knowledge for these offices. We've been working on that for a year now, trying to, get people to know more about it, because people don't know. And these things affect our lives a whole lot more than,
I never
so.
passed the first two, because
I
I
know.
don't never know who
No,
anybody is.
but we're gonna change that. Thanks, everybody for coming, and,